I've been communicating to you all for a really long time since the podcast started, but I want to make clear that everything I talk about is in pencil and that what applies today in life may not apply tomorrow. What that means is that we are expanding, we're moving forward. The way that I would drive to a friend's house back in 1997 is not at all the same way that I would drive to a friend's house today. In 1997, we had what we call maps. I think they're called Thomson maps or Thomas maps, something like that. We had those in our car. We would have to open up the booklet, the Thomas book thing, physically search for the location. Or if when friends gave us, directions, they would have to list every single street we were going to pass to make sure that we didn't drive too far ahead. And so what I'm trying to say is that things change. Everything evolves. Our understanding 5 minutes ago is not the same understanding 5 minutes later. I really want to take a dive into this because I want you to know that we're evolving as we go into conversations in the podcast. And if anything ever contradicts itself, it's because we are evolving. And I'm always so open to evolution and expansion. I never get stuck on a teaching. I like to really embody the teaching and then be open to receiving a completely different perspective from it. As I move closer to the work, I have been really using the title healer. I applied it to my Instagram, my personal Instagram bio, and people are referring to me as a healer. And yes, I agree. I will stand in that power. I am a healer. It doesn't necessarily mean that I just go out and heal people. It means that I've really healed and worked on myself and that I share the teachings that I've learned. I believe I carry an energetic healing, and I do believe that when we show up as healers, when I show up in this way, I do strongly believe that when we're in close proximity of each other, we could feel our healing energy. I receive that from other healers receive it from me. People that are seeking healing are attracted to the energetic space that surrounds me. And so I want to make this really clear because I got a really powerful reminder yesterday as I was listening to Eckhart Tolle. On the second half of this podcast, we're going to talk about all of the books that I've ingested that have changed my life. One of them was Eckhart. He's one of my favorite teachers, and he's currently doing a series with Oprah. They're going through the book A New Earth. That is such a powerful book. I've read the book like 20 times, but it seems like every time I hear it or when I hear his perspective or his take on the book as he's elaborating it, I learn something new. And one of the things that really caught my attention as I was listening to his last episode with Oprah was that he said, how the ego identifies to certain titles that we give ourselves. It reminded me of when I first learned this teaching, how I really had to work hard to let go of identifying myself as someone that worked at Netflix. Because Netflix held and holds so much weight that I used to identify with the weight that Netflix held. There's so much ego involved in that because I didn't feel confident in myself and who Linda Garcia was. I made myself Linda Garcia, the one that works at Netflix. Anytime I walked into a room and people were like, "Where do you work?" and I'm like, "At Netflix," it was like, whoa. I would gain so much respect, most especially from people that I felt very inferior towards. And I immediately felt myself elevated in a way where it wasn't any longer Linda, the teen mom. It was Linda, the woman that works at Netflix. Let's just go back really quick where I mentioned that I gained respect when I would say Netflix. At that moment in ego, I thought that was respect. I thought, yes, this is the way I deserve to be treated. I deserve to be respected for what I'm doing in the film industry, what I'm contributing to. And while, yes, it was garnering a level of respect, what I've learned to understand is that is not the type of respect I want. I do not want for someone to uphold me in this fake vibrational space where now they like me because of what I can potentially offer them, of the false power that I may hold in an industry that is so revered. Ego attracts ego. I was attracting people that were emulating me, where they too had to say what they said in order to feel a level of acceptance in society. It is a false level of respect, one that I want to work towards not getting caught up in again. Ego is something that I don't want to call it bad, you guys. It's not bad. It's something that we all are taught. It's engraved in us. It's how we identify ourselves. The vision I just received from the ego is kind of like the story of the caterpillar, where the caterpillar is born understanding life from a certain perspective and lives life from a certain perspective. But as it matures and as it goes through its journey, it creates this cocoon. Transformation and rebirth is taking place in that cocoon. And once it is released from that cocoon, it is completely transformed into a butterfly that gets to soar and touch the ground if it wants to touch the ground. But it reaches heights that I'm sure the caterpillar never knew possible. As I just received the picture, I saw the butterfly looking down at the caterpillar. And I don't think the butterfly is putting it down for being in that state. It's just part of its transformation. It's part of its life. And so I feel like the ego is the same thing. We all go through it. Unfortunately, some of us never get into our cocoons and turn into our butterflies because of the limiting beliefs and the fear that we hold. But that's why there are spiritual teachers and guides to help facilitate a space of healing and a space of transformation. As we move into a space of enlightenment and into a space of consciousness, one of the most important tasks, the work that we're doing, is to unattach ourselves from our ego. Every time you turn a corner, it's your work to recognize, am I speaking from a place of ego or am I speaking from a place of consciousness? Am I making this statement in order to make myself feel better than those that surround me, in order to elevate myself? Those are all things that we have to think about when we are seeking consciousness and when we are seeking advancement. And sometimes it is one of the most difficult things to accept. And it's not just like, oh, okay, I unattached myself to the title Netflix, so I let go of my ego. No, there's so many forms of attachments to ego. For example, the very first time I understood that I was egotistically attached to my career and to who I was perceived as, I was around 26 years old. And every paycheck, I would go out and buy myself a $100 pair of shoes, 2 brand new outfits for the weekend. I was drowning in consumerism. And the idea of putting on this image and always having something new, it was my life. It was what I worked for. But more importantly, it was what I thought and what I believed that I was supposed to work for. My spiritual mentor at the time said to me, all of those things, that closet that you have, all of those shoes that you have, don't matter. And I remember being so upset because I had just learned about The Secret and about sitting on your couch and envisioning a Porsche and how the Porsche was going to appear in your driveway. And I was so upset at the teaching of The Secret, and I was so upset that I was just learning this now, because I felt like had I learned it at a younger age, it would have been easy for myself to unattach myself to my possessions. But I was so caught up that that was me, that those shoes were me, that the outfits I put together were me. And it felt like my life was destroyed. I got down on the ground and cried for hours. I'm talking about like heavy crying, because I fully understood in that moment how attached I was to something that truly, genuinely didn't matter. That all that mattered was the expansion of consciousness in my head. It didn't matter how much my closet grew. What mattered was how much my mental grew, how much my understanding shifted, how much perception I was able to intake and regurgitate. And so shortly after that, I decided to spend my days in solitude. I was fasting, and I also read the Bible cover to cover. This was in 2006. I was creating a foundation for the next few years of my life. Everything for me around this time was about to shift majorly. Fast forward to now. I am identifying another level of ego for myself. So I'm having a parallel experience, except this time I'm much more fully prepared and capable of letting go of that identity and understanding that the work that I do isn't me, the person, the flesh and the blood. It is energy that comes from source and has nothing to do with Linda Garcia. As soon as this discovery was really clear and I was able to identify what I needed to break down and not attach myself to the egoic label of healer, I began to receive the same message that I received the very first time I identified attaching myself egoically to something outside of me, which was to begin to read the Bible. So I know that I'm upon a major shift. I've received intuitively so many messages from so many directions, confirmations of you need to read the Bible. And I actually started reading it again. And something wasn't completely shifting, like I needed to read something else. I found it very powerful though. I was getting through Genesis, and it's so crazy to me how much I was able to tie in from what we talk about on this podcast, from the phases of the moon to the seasons. It was so clear in Genesis. And it's just so funny that some people may perceive the phases as something that is unholy and unworthy when it's actually right there in the first chapter of the Bible. Part of me really wanted to interpret the Bible from my perspective today, not from Linda in the beginning of a shift in her spiritual journey in 2006, but Linda today, 2019. Something just wasn't aligning though. I had one night where I woke up in the middle of the night. I clearly heard the word Gnostic. And I knew in my heart and in my soul that that was what I was being called to read. I can't even believe I'm talking about this right now. I want to create a really safe space in this moment, in that if there's anyone that struggles with rigid concepts and rigid ideas, to loosen up a little bit. And if you still find yourself tense, I would like to invite you to exit the podcast. Maybe this episode is not for you. I wasn't going to talk about this, but I'm feeling called to do it. If you're not familiar with Gnostics, Gnostics are believed to be gospels that were never included into the Bible. They were gospels that were taken out. Some of the gospels are from disciples, and some of the gospels are from people that were very close to Jesus, like Mary Magdalene. But the church decided to remove those gospels because they were afraid that people would begin to find Jesus within, and they weren't going to be able to have a level of control over the church and its participants. What would happen if people began to search for Jesus within? They would no longer come to church. During those early Christian years, nobody was allowed to preach or speak from their heart, talk about an intuition or anything like that. You were called a Gnostic. You were casted away outside of Christianity, and you were only allowed to speak of the Bible depending on the level that you were at in the church. And you had to be like direct students of some of the disciples. And it was just a whole chain of command on who was allowed to speak in church, because they believed that that was the way it was ruled in heaven, which is really interesting that they formulated this thought that there was a construct in heaven that they needed to emulate here on earth. The Gospels from the Gnostics were actually people that were receiving Jesus's messages from a different perspective, from a perspective of expansion, very similar to the ideas that we talk about on this podcast. podcast. The very root word of Gnostic is knowing, to know. Someone that listens to their intuitive voice and expands from an intuitive place, which is completely against the rules that the church has put together. I had heard about the Gnostics back in 2007, and I understood that there were gospels that were removed, and that's as much as I understood. And so the idea of reading the gospels and actually physically trying to figure out what the gospels were was not a point of attraction for me. And I think it was because I wasn't ready. And so now I'm really being called to understand these gospels that were removed. A lot of them were burned, so a lot of them are missing, but to understand the ones that are somewhat accessible. They're not fully accessible. They are living in some universities. I think Harvard has access to some of the gospels, and there's very strict rules on who is allowed to read them and who isn't. So basically, we don't have access to the gospels. We can only hear about scholars that have studied the gospels. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm learning it via a scholar. Her name is Elaine Pagel, and I'm learning so much. It resonates with me on such a deep level. It really feels like the work that I'm doing is simply being confirmed. Back then, a Christian Gnostic is what they were seen as, was Christian Gnostics. They believed that the advancement of the understanding of consciousness was going to shift in the years to come, and that humans were going to evolve so far and become so far advanced that they would find new understandings of what level of consciousness, what worship, what prayer, what energy meant. And that was very challenging for the church, the Catholic Church, to accept, because they would argue that if a Gnostic believed that, then they believed that they were greater than the disciples. And if they believed that they were greater than the disciples, then they could possibly be believing that they were greater than Jesus. For me personally, I don't think that's what the Gnostics meant, but that's how they were being seen by the Catholic Christian Church. And the sort of response that I'm gathering from this, that the Gnostics had for this sort of claim, was that Jesus himself would go out and only speak in parables in public so that the person that was ready to receive the message would be able to receive it. Not a direct, literal message, but a message that was specifically for each person. It was a unique message that once you heard it, your heart could decipher the way it would speak to you from your personal perspective and your personal understanding at that time in your life. Something else that I found interesting about the Gnostics was that they were all mainly artists on some type of level. There's this quote that Oprah Winfrey always quotes that belongs to someone else, but she says, art is a form of prayer. And every time I hear her say that, I really resonate with it, because there's something that happens for me when I'm writing. There's something that happens for me when I'm speaking from my heart. And I really believe that storytelling is my artistic contribution to the world. And I believe that it is when I am the most aligned with source. Sometimes I have an out-of-body experience where I'm just kind of watching my lips move and listen to what is coming out of my mouth. And when I listen to it again, I'm actually taking in the lessons. It's like not coming from me, it's coming through me. And so to actually believe that there's only a selected few persons, mainly men, on this earth that are allowed to regurgitate any teachings that Jesus had is antiquated to me and is not serving the greater good. I don't think that a handful of people are supposed to reign throne over teachings that God has given us. I think we are all the kings and queens of the messages and the teachings that we're supposed to be learning that is specifically tailored to our personal life, meaning nobody else can teach us what to believe based on their understanding, because that is tailored to their personal life, not to ours. So it's always important for us to question everything and take deeper looks. I know to some people it might be extremely offensive that I'm reading the Gnostics. As I go into this deeper and deeper, I'm I'm learning so much about myself and the calling that I have. And I'm learning so much about Christianity during this era that fascinates me. It really has to fascinate me on some level. If at 26 years old, I read the Bible cover to cover, not being a hardcore Christian or anything like that, just really trying to explore and understand who is God, who is Jesus, what is this life, why are we in so much pain, why do we suffer, why do some people not suffer, just really trying to understand and find peace. I'm loving going into this so much, you guys. I could keep talking about it for hours and hours and hours. I just wanted to give you an update and let you know what kind of content I'm ingesting right now, and also talk to you more. Let's go back to the idea of being a healer. Biblically, Jesus would always talk about how we had the ability to heal ourselves. I think this is really part of the work that I am being called to do, is to really share that we are all healers. As I sat on stage yesterday and I talked about how I don't feel like I'm a healer towards other people, I feel like I'm more of an advocate of how we can heal ourselves. I do feel like a guide of the message, and I do feel like there are souls that are advanced in their understanding about healing. Maybe they're more confident. And when you're in a place of confidence, you're in a place of belief. So Jesus would always talk about this, like you just have to believe. And I know sometimes believing is so hard, but when we continue to do the work and move into that space, we begin to believe little by little, little by little, little by little. And then eventually you're filling up a space that is so grand where you're able to really facilitate and help other people on the journey. How selfish would it be of me to be like, I'm a healer for myself. I'm not here to help you. I'm not here to help your child. I'm not here. No, that's not the way this works. I think this energy needs to be shared. And I think that in sharing that energy, in doing the energy clearings that I'm doing, I not only am I really helping clear legit energy that needs to be cleared from my clients, but I'm also giving them an understanding and a level of belief that is beyond what we have been taught. I heard Young Pueblo say not too long ago how healers and people that really work with energy, how they can really help to progress and elevate your spiritual journey. I completely believe that, because before I became a pranic healer myself, I would receive consistent energy clearings from Marcela Arrieta. And she was the one that pushed me into learning how to do this for myself because I wanted it so much. I watched myself get really uncomfortable as I was being called a healer. I know that's what I call myself, but I'm learning that I don't want my ego to attach itself to this title that might make me feel like I'm superior than anyone else, because I'm not. That's where the line of confusion comes in. All of us, every single one of us, if you're listening to this podcast, I believe you're a healer. If you're attracted to this type of content, I believe you are a healer. We are all healers. It just depends on how far we are down the path, how much more advanced, because we've been doing the work. And it's not about measuring yourself against anyone else. It's about how far you have advanced in comparison to yourself. I'm happy to be here to facilitate and help and assist and guide in any way that I can. But I am also here to tell you how much of a healer you are, and that I didn't get here from one day to the next, and that there wasn't one magic book that helped me get here. There were many books, many human beings, many divine circumstances, all because I began to open my eyes wider and pay attention to everything. Everything. You guys, I could drive myself crazy paying attention to everything, because I would be having a conversation. I was outside, let's say I was speaking to somebody, and I would hear a bird. I would hear something would happen during certain parts of the conversation, and I understood the universe was speaking. It wasn't just the person in front of me. It wasn't just me. I understood that there was an energy that was all connected, and everything was speaking and underlining certain things that I needed to take from what I was engaging with someone else, if I would get pulled away, if something would interrupt it, I knew this is divine and I am being guided, I am being protected, and everything is working in my favor. And the hand of God is so grand that when it works in my favor, that doesn't mean it's not working in your favor. It is working in your favor. The hand of God is working in our favor simultaneously. That is how powerful God is. That is how great God is. So for us to try and boil it down to a rigid teaching that has no room for growth and love and compassion and understanding is beyond me. And to take it a step further, for us to believe that God condemns a group of people and elevates another group of people is also beyond me. I think that is such an antiquated way of seeing things. And for when you condemn someone else, the only thing you are doing is condemning yourself. You're calling that circumstance into your life. I cannot tell you how many of my mom's relatives, her friends, society condemned me for some of the choices I made in life, like to be a teen mother, to be in gangs. All of the choices that I was being condemned for by other people, older people that were adults, they were in that moment condemning themselves, and they were calling upon what they were disgusted in me. They were calling it upon their own children and their own circumstances. And I can't tell you how many times I watched people eat their words. So you tell me how God feels about us criticizing a group of people and saying that they are unholy or unworthy. We need to be careful because God is so much greater than that. And everyone is placed here to be our teacher when they trigger us. All right, I'm jumping in right now. I'm currently editing. Originally, the second half of this episode was going to be all of the content that I've ingested throughout my spiritual journey that has really catapulted myself into growth. But this episode has gotten out of control and it's already looking like an hour and a half. We're going to pick it back up next week with all of the content. So let's get into some important updates I have. I do want to let you know that I am so sorry. Couples Healings are finally up on my website. I lied. I just flat out lied last week's episode and I said they were up and they weren't. They're up now. So the karmic investment for that is $188. You're going to receive a couple's energy healing for you and your loved one at $188, you guys. If you were to purchase a healing individually for each one of you, the investment would be $108. So this is actually a really good deal. It also includes a sacred ritual that I've developed for you and your partner, and also a meditation. When you purchase your couple's healing within the next few days, you'll receive all of the things that you need to have in preparation for your sacred ritual, and you will also be able to book the day that works for you and your partner. You will not receive the meditation or the sacred ritual schedule until the day of, just to kind of keep that a surprise, conserve the energy so that you don't cheat, listen ahead, or read ahead or anything like that. It's going to be a surprise to both of you on what will be taking place. This ritual is going to be intended for those that are seeking a spiritual journey together, that are looking to deepen their intimacy, and also remove muck. Remove muck of things that don't serve us. As couples, when we're in a relationship, we go through a lot of things, and some things are not great. They're not positive. Some things are negative, and that's normal. That's part of life, guys. If we ever think we're going to get into a relationship where everything is perfect, we are mistaken. And so it's releasing and letting go, forgiving. If you need to forgive, this is a powerful experience for you and your partner. Let go. I know sometimes we love to hold grudges. Let's just let that shit go. It doesn't serve us. Okay, second announcement is I have Mujer Llena spaces open, okay?
Let's eat, Mommy.
Okay, baby, I'll be right there and we'll eat right now.
Ow.
I have spaces for Mujer Llena open. We have, I want to say 4 spaces, maybe 3. No, 3. We have 3 spaces open. two of our original attendees got pregnant. Congratulations, ladies. And so they are due in and around the same time as Mujer Llena, and another one just needed to pull back for other reasons. So I'm excited that we have these spaces. I'm excited for Mujer Llena and all of the magic that is going to take place. I also want to let you know that tickets are super cheap, like hella cheap, because I was in a place of lack when I priced out those tickets. And so you get 3 nights on 2.5 acres, a 10-bedroom mansion in Indio with meals included, ranging from $1,000 to $1,400, you guys. You will never ever find a retreat that is so lavish with the type of exercises that we are going to be doing for this price. I was in the biggest lack mentality ever. But you know what? That's okay. We live and we learn. And guess what? You get to take advantage of that and experience a retreat, a woman's gathering that is next level powerful, opening the door to new experiences. And sometimes we need to tiptoe. So this price is at the tiptoe price. So if you're interested, what I want you to do is I want you to head over to my website, check out events, and sign up for the waiting list. I already have a waiting list that has been ongoing since the retreat launched because tickets sold immediately. Go ahead and put your name on the list. I'm going to be sending out an email letting you know all the details when tickets are going to go live. Tickets will be available to everyone, but I'm going to make them exclusively available for the women on the waiting list. And I'm just going to set it live and you all figure it out if you want to do it. I'm also doing payment plans. The payment plan is going to be for 8 months. Do the math. Tickets range from $1,000 to $1,400. And let's see, oh my gosh, we have the Dream Big event that is happening this weekend. I am so freaking excited for this. I'm going to be hosting an abundance bank exercise that I cannot wait. It was inspired by a money magic workshop that I went to. And I pretty much rearranged it, broke it down, and shifted it to adapt it to my understanding of how money is energy and how we're not supposed to necessarily pray for money because that's not good, guys. That is not good. What we want to pray to is the ability to create money, not the actual money itself, because then we're worshiping something outside of us. So we got to be worshiping everything inside, and then we're really going to see expansion. And so I'm excited for this workshop. It's going to be super cool, not to mention that there's going to be 3 other healers there. Ana Lilia's breathwork is freaking amazing. If you haven't heard, now you know. And then, of course, Angie Sanchez is going to be there. There's another healer that's going to be there. I strongly recommend that you check out the description. The link is in my bio. If you click the link in my bio, it automatically gives you 10% discount. So that's a special link that's exclusive for Let There Be Luz. You don't need to input the code or anything like that. It's already put in for you. And so if you want to attend this powerful 2019 abundance workshop, Dream Bigger retreat, head over to the link in the bio so that you can make your karmic investment and check out all the magic that's going to take place. Last announcement that I have is if you were interested in Dari Luna's channeling, she is now officially offering her channeling sessions on her website. So you can head over to Dari Luna, head over to her Instagram, and check out her channeling sessions that are now going to be available for you to purchase. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's an episode where she channels for me and gives me some really powerful insight on my life and where it's headed. If you haven't rated us, please be sure to head over to iTunes and give us 5 stars, write a review. Remember that this really helps me get exposure. Not only does it help me get exposure, but it also helps content of color that is similar to mine get exposure as well. I would really appreciate you taking the time and making that karmic energy investment for Let There Be Luz. If you've resonated with any of the content and you feel like you want to give back, this is the perfect way to give back. Also, if you haven't joined Patreon and you're loving Let There Be Luz, then I don't know what you're waiting for. I would highly recommend joining Patreon. We have different levels that you can join at. The 3 main levels are the $3 level, the $11 level, and the $22 level. What I do want to say is the biggest bang for your buck is going to be the $22 level. At the $22 level, not only do you receive extended podcast content, but you also kind of receive real-time, real blogs from me on downloads that I'm receiving. I just kind of pick up the camera and give you the download or give you the situation that I'm going through, and we break it down together. We also get to talk about it on there. It's just a much more intimate tribe setting. What you also receive on the $22 level is you get what used to be a Q&A with me monthly and now is going to be a monthly moon ritual. So we're going to be doing a moon ritual every month. I really believe that this is the greatest investment at $22. Look at it as a gym membership, but for your spirituality. You can communicate with me. I'm always in there responding to comments, responding to messages, and creating extra content. So if you love this, head over to Patreon where it gets really real. I love you all so much. May the light within grow stronger. Benny's waiting for me to go eat, so I'm gonna go eat with my little baby.
Return to the one.